Oh, Bronte asked if I could do a screencast on propaganda because we haven't necessarily talked a lot about it this year. So I've just picked an essay question that came off an exam that was given last year. I think it might have been TWSM English exam last year. So it's a quote question. So quote one, Julia and her family tread the line between seeing things for what they are in the GDR and ignoring those realities in order to stay sane. So the whole idea of Julia Berens, who becomes a victim of the Stasi and the difficulty of living under the GDR. Okay, so straight away, the fact that it says for what they are and staying sane and ignoring these realities, there's three different things in that quote that tells me it's a propaganda question. All right, before I even get to the next part. Life, if you looked about you, bore no resemblance to the lies that streamed out of the tally screen. So Winston's aware of the party's propaganda, but he has no way to establish the party's claims were lies. So straight away the quotes are asking you to set up the difference in some part. So Julia, I suppose, can establish that they are explicitly lying to them, but Winston has no way. And then the question itself says, compare the ways in which the text explore the difficulty, so the challenges, okay, how it's hard of establishing what is true. All right, I've got the whole essay done, all right. This has been in the sample folder for a while, but I thought I'd better talk you through it. So paragraph one still is control, okay? I still want to talk about control, all right? Because that's how they prevent the truth from coming out in both regimes. So in terms of what I'm going to talk about with control, I'm going to talk about doublethink and I'm going to talk about GDR logic, okay? And then my second paragraph is going to be the perpetuation of lies by the government and the propaganda, okay, the extent of the propaganda, okay, and then I'm going to look at fictional hate, okay, and then of course in that final paragraph I need to really establish the difference, okay, in some way. I need to establish that there's some sort of difference between these two regimes. All right, let's go back up to the top. I haven't broken it down. I'm just going to talk you through it, okay? So my topic sentence, I've kind of split my topic sentence. I've talked about 1984 first. So I want to say doublethink is how totalitarian regimes seek to undercut one's capacity to establish what is true, because mind control equals power. It's not an amazing topic sentence, it does the job. And then because I've only talked about 1984, I've said, this is realised in the non-fictional Stasiland. My Funder explores the way in which the GDR and Stasi sought to discredit the truth through propaganda and logic. What are my examples going to be? Well, I think the first example I thought of was, you know, how in 1984 the inner party or the party themselves, ILSOC, say they created, I think it's really interesting, planes, all right, and how they're freed from the oppression of their capitalist masters. So it's really important that you understand the context of the quotes you're using. So try and find them in your ebook. Remember, you guys have got access to these. And now that I say that I can't find it, I should have done it before. Let's try capitalist masters as a quote search. No, it doesn't love me. All right, you get the idea. Please try and double check the context of your quotes so you make sure you know where they're coming from. The rewriting of history and conditions, etc. The lie in which the party have been. So this whole idea that they're told that like life now is better to them, and they're told that like under capitalism things were a whole lot worse. Okay, but alternatively you could also talk about the tally screens. I think you could easily here talk quite a lot about the tally screens and the propaganda. Okay. What else? Then we move on to Funder. I think Stasiland, that you are not unemployed, you are seeking work. So the mind control, there's no unemployment in the German Democratic Republic, okay? So you're trying to establish what this looks like. What does this mind control and thus power look like in these two regimes? Okay, so you're talking about how you were controlled, and then of course Frau Paul, believing herself to be a criminal, she's told, we investigate you, therefore you are an enemy, and she kind of believes that. Okay, it becomes so much part of it, and it's so untrue, but of course they're so conditioned by what has happened to them, by the extent of the propaganda that they believe it. Okay, Paragraph 2, I'm talking about government ideology. So in 1984 in Stasiland, characters' lives are controlled by government ideology, which often perpetuates, that should be an S, lies and makes the truth impossible to discern. This control extends to agents of the state whose sole purpose is to produce propaganda. So by saying agents of the state, that just gives me the scope to talk about Winston, because I'm going to talk about Winston's job in here. In 1984, protagonist Winston Smith is employed in the Ministry of Truth. So here we're going to say that Winston himself, although he challenges, if we go back up to our quote, the lies, okay, that streamed out of the tele screens, is complicit in this process. He is part of it, all right? Because what he does every day is he rewrites the past. He ensures that nothing can ever be proved. And I suppose I could have gone into more detail here. I could have talked about Comrade Ogilvy and what he does there, okay, and the extent to which, again, it's never possible to prove anything. In Stasiland, Funda also highlights the use of propaganda and falsehoods typical in a totalitarian state. She looks sympathetically upon Stasi men who were victims of the regime, such as Hagen Kosch, all right? So remember Hagen Kosch, who was the poster boy, but of course he finds out that the truth is revealed, all right, and they get remarried. So the whole manipulation of him by the Stasi, I suppose, is what you talk about there, and the fact that, again, like Winston, even though he is part of the Stasi, even though he is a Stasi agent, that does not mean he is exempt from what happens, all right? However, and this however is really important, I would say, because you have to establish some of that difference. Unlike Winston, who admits 2 + 2 = 5, Hagen Kosch is remarried and the story comes out, okay? Paragraph 3, fictional hate. Continued distortions of the truth in 1984 means controlling the people. And I'd actually, now looking back at this a year later, I'd make this more about authorial intent, okay? Because Orwell is warning us, of course, readers, of the impact of totalitarian regimes and the manipulation of the truth, I suppose. So that's kind of where I'd go now, and I'd talk about how there is more, what would I say? I'd talk about in Stasiland there is, as I said at the top, the ability to establish the truth. This is seen through, I'm actually going to pause this and I'm going to rewrite this paragraph for you, okay? So I'll come back to it in a second. Third paragraph. I changed my mind. This happens year to year. I get different ideas about what I want to say. So last year I wanted to just focus on fictional hate. This year I want to focus on authorial intent and what the authors were trying to achieve more. Okay, we've talked a lot about this. So Orwell's warning people, whereas Funda's just investigating the past. She's looking for these stories, okay? So the first thing I talk about, of course, again, is how establishing a truth beyond what is said by Big Brother is impossible because they've got control over all records and all memories. And my explicit example of this is Winston and O'Brien, because, you know, O'Brien highlights the power of the party in saying there's no way they can be overthrown. And then this is really realized when Winston says 2 + 2 = 5. Okay, so if I have a propaganda question, my third paragraph is going to talk about how ultimately Orwell's ending shows that the propaganda is effective in 1984 because he wants to warn us against this kind of manipulation of the truth, okay? And Winston is defeated, all right? While Orwell uses, for example, 2 minutes hate, Funda uses the black channel, okay? But again, although the black channel is propaganda, it's supposed to be anti-Westerner, the citizens of the former East Germany know that they're being fed lies, okay? And then, of course, I've come back here to 1984, so this isn't possible because they can change the channel or turn the TV off in the former GDR, okay? They can't do this in Orwell's fictional regime of Oceania, okay, under INSOC. They can't turn the telescreen off. And then the other example, you may well run out of space to get all of these in, but again, I'm trying to give you as much as I can, is you can talk about von Schnitzler, who's kind of seen as being a ridiculous character, I suppose. Like Funda almost mocks him because he's puffing and red. So, you know, she goes to see him and he is or was once, you know, this important character. So you might look at von Schnitt, okay? But then I suppose in the present, he's not, you know, he's got all these books, etc. And he tries to almost intimidate Funda herself, but, you know, he doesn't really seem this significant character. I think there's some really interesting quotes in here, and, you know, the fact that she covers these Stasi men, but, you know, at the end of the chapter, she presents them sort of as someone not really that important. You know, he's shouting and, you know, he's puffing and cross and red. All right, full stop, he screams. This conversation is now over. So she's able to rattle him, okay? So the truth is able to come out, Funda suggests, and that's the difference, okay? So a way to control the views and the beliefs of citizens in 1984. Stasiland, those under the regimes, have the truth withheld in the state they lived under. However, Funda suggests that it is possible to establish the truth in a way that Orwell does not, okay? So just to recap, we're going control, we're going the ideology and the extent to which the people are complicit, and then we're going fictional hate and authorial intent. And the first and the third paragraph are excessively long, I've noticed. I'm sorry for that, but that should give you lots to talk about, okay? Propaganda is not a hard question. You just have to think about these three sort of paragraph ideas and just think about the examples that you're going to use. Okay, so have a read of this. If you've got any questions, come and talk to me in the next week or two. There's lots of propaganda questions out there, okay? There is every chance that you'll get propaganda on the exam. We did put a propaganda question on your SAC, okay? It's definitely important that you've had a go at some point in time before the exam at writing a propaganda essay, okay? You can't rely on human spirit to be, or something along those lines, on the exam. All right, good luck with your practice exam on Monday. See you through the week.